The cold steel clamped around Elijah Carter's wrists with a chilling finality. Around 60, his salt and pepper hair neatly trimmed, this Black Army Special Forces Sergeant Major, retired, a Green Beret veteran, now a simple auto mechanic, was being treated like a dangerous criminal. The cuffs bit into his weathered skin, a stark contrast to the quiet dignity he exuded. The absurdity of the situation was a bitter pill. Moments earlier, Elijah had been exiting a supermarket when he saw two young thugs attempting to snatch an elderly black woman's purse. His reaction, honed by decades of service where hesitation cost lives, was instinctive and precise. He moved with a fluid economy of motion that belied his age, disarming the situation without throwing a single punch. The would-be thieves, startled by his calm authority and imposing presence, had scrambled away. But when the police cruisers, sirens wailing, skidded to a halt, one of the fleeing culprits, desperate to save his own skin, pointed a shaking finger at Elijah. "It was him, officer. He was with us. That old black dude tried to set us up." Officer Johnson, young, paunchy, and visibly on edge, roughly shoved Elijah against the squad car. "Dangerous, this one looks, Chief," Johnson muttered to Police Chief Davis, a portly white man whose face was a mask of bored disdain. Davis, known for his hardline, racially biased policing, eyed Elijah. "Another troublemaking old black vet, I bet. Thinks he's still in a war zone. Cuff him tight." Elijah remained silent, his gaze steady, fixing on a distant point as they tightened the restraints. His green eyes, the kind that had scanned hostile terrains and identified threats from a mile away, now took in every detail of the officer's demeanor, the barely concealed contempt. He'd learned long ago that some battles weren't won by shouting. But a familiar fire, a righteous anger tempered by years of discipline, burned deep within him. This wasn't a foreign battlefield, this was home. And home had just declared war on him. The fluorescent lights of the precinct buzzed, casting a sterile, unwelcoming glow. At the booking desk, a gum-chewing officer barely glanced up. "Name?" "Elijah Carter." "Occupation?" "Auto mechanic," Elijah stated, his voice even. He deliberately omitted his 25 years in the Army, his rank, his commendations. Experience had taught him that in situations like this, with men like Chief Davis, his service record, especially as a black man, could be twisted into a liability, a sign of instability or aggression. Chief Davis sauntered over, a smug smirk playing on his lips. Well, what have we here?" "Heard you were playing hero, old man." His tone dripped with sarcasm, a thick, oozing contempt. "Let me guess, another traumatized veteran thinking he's Rambo." "A black Rambo, huh? What were you gonna do, fix the lady's purse with a wrench?" Davis chuckled, a harsh, grating sound. Elijah met his gaze, his expression unreadable. "I was assisting a citizen in distress, Chief." "Assisting, huh?" Davis leaned closer, invading Elijah's personal space. "You look like you've seen a few too many bar fights, mechanic. You all say you're just helping, dot." He picked up Elijah's heavily calloused hand. "Grease monkey hands. Figures." What Chief Davis didn't see, couldn't comprehend, was that those hands had once meticulously field-stripped an M4 rifle blindfolded, had expertly administered life-saving first aid under fire, had gripped the controls of specialized vehicles in covert operations across deserts and jungles. Those hands had pulled General Samuel Thompson, then a colonel, from the burning wreckage of a helicopter in Somalia. But to Davis, they were just the dirty hands of an old black man, a nobody. As Elijah was led towards a holding cell, his eyes, ever observant, caught a detail on Chief Davis's office wall. Amidst the usual plaques and photos of Davis shaking hands with local politicians, one prominently displayed photograph showed Davis grinning alongside the CEO of Morrison Construction. A banner in the background bore the company's logo. Morrison Construction. The name echoed in Elijah's mind. Just last month, they'd inexplicably fired 3 highly skilled black veteran mechanics, friends of his, citing budget cuts that never seemed to affect anyone else. A flicker of understanding, cold and sharp, pierced through Elijah's resolve. Coincidences, his military training had hammered into him, were rarely just coincidences. This wasn't just a mistaken arrest. This was something dirtier, something systemic. And he, Elijah Carter, had just stumbled right into the middle of it. The chill of the holding cell seeped into Elijah's bones, but it was nothing compared to the nights he'd spent in far worse conditions during his service. The smell of stale sweat and despair hung heavy in the air. While other detainees grumbled or slept fitfully, Elijah sat on a thin mattress, his back straight, his mind a whirlwind of activity. He replayed the events, analyzed Davis's overtly racist taunts, the Morrison construction photograph, the unjust firings of his fellow black veterans. A pattern began to emerge, ugly and undeniable. This was a setup, and likely not the first of its kind targeting black men, especially veterans, in this town. The next morning, a guard grunted, "Carter, you got a visitor." In the visitation room, a sharp, well-dressed black man in his late 40s extended a hand. "Elijah Carter? My name is Ben Jackson. Attorney at law." His handshake was firm, his eyes intelligent and direct. "I'm a retired Marine, sir. Heard about your situation through the Veterans Network. Some of us look out for our own. What happened to you? It stinks to high heaven." Elijah studied him. "How did you even know I served?" Jackson smiled faintly. "The way you carry yourself, even in cuffs. Takes one to know one, Sergeant Major." He'd already done his homework. "Besides," Jackson continued, opening a slim briefcase, "I made some calls after hearing the initial report. It seems Chief Davis has a very cozy, very profitable, and very off-the-books relationship with several local businesses, Morrison Construction being one of his biggest benefactors. Over the last 2 years, at least 5 black veterans who had disputes or were simply inconvenient to Davis's business cronies have found themselves arrested on trumped-up charges. It's a racket, Mr. Carter. They're trying to silence you, make an example of you." Later that day, another unexpected visitor arrived. Mrs. Henderson, the elderly woman Elijah had saved, stood there, her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and fierce determination. Her daughter stood beside her, equally resolute. "Mr. Carter," Mrs. Henderson began, her voice trembling slightly but firm, "I came to thank you. You saved my life. And I told those officers exactly what happened, that you were a hero, not a criminal. They didn't want to listen." She leaned closer. "But that's not all. My daughter, she works in the city clerk's office. We know about Chief Davis. He's a crook, a racist bully. And those 2 thugs who attacked me? They're known associates of his. He uses them for his dirty work, then lets them walk." She discreetly slid a folded piece of paper across the small table. "These are numbers for people who can corroborate what I'm saying, people Davis has wronged. And there's a recording, my daughter, she's smart. She recorded my initial statement at the station, where I clearly identified you as my savior and the officers dismissed it." That evening, Elijah used his one permitted phone call. The number was seared into his memory. After a few rings, a familiar, authoritative voice answered. "Thompson. General Thompson, sir. This is Sergeant Major Elijah Carter. Operation Desert Viper, squad leader." There was a stunned silence, then, "Elijah. My God, man, where have you been? I've been trying to track you down for years since you mustered out. It's a long story, General. But right now, I'm in a bit of a jam. A local one. And I think it's part of something bigger, something targeting men like us." As Elijah laid out the situation, he could almost feel the temperature drop through the phone line. General Samuel Thompson, one of the highest-ranking black officers in the U.S. military, owed Elijah his life. And he never forgot a debt, especially to a brother-in-arms. They did what? General Thompson's voice, usually calm and measured, now crackled with cold fury. A decorated Green Beret, a man I personally recommended for the Medal of Honor, arrested and humiliated by some racist, tin pot police chief. Elijah, this will not stand. The general's mind, trained for strategic command, was already processing contingencies. This Chief Davis has no idea the hornet's nest he's just kicked. He assured Elijah, I'll make some discreet inquiries, rattle the right cages. You focus on staying strong. You're not alone in this. The next day, a palpable tension filled the police station. Chief Davis received a series of courtesy calls. The first was from the State Attorney General's office, a vaguely worded inquiry about ensuring procedural correctness in recent arrests of military veterans. The second, more pointed, came from a liaison at the Department of Defense, referencing concerns about the treatment of a highly respected former service member of color. No names were mentioned, but the implication was clear. Davis, sweating despite the air conditioning, stormed into the interrogation room where Elijah sat, composed as ever. All right, Carter. Davis slammed his hand on the metal table. What game are you playing? Who did you call? Some NAACP lawyer? Some bleeding heart liberal politician? Elijah met his furious gaze with an unnerving calm. I don't know what you're talking about, Chief. I'm just an auto mechanic, remember? Don't play dumb with me. Davis leaned in, his face flushed. Someone high up is asking questions. Very uncomfortable questions. You're in a lot more trouble than you think, old man. Elijah allowed a faint, almost imperceptible smile to touch his lips. Perhaps, Chief, the trouble isn't mine. Perhaps it's yours for underestimating someone you knew nothing about. For judging a book by a cover you clearly despise. The subtle shift in Elijah's demeanor, the quiet confidence, infuriated Davis further. He saw his carefully constructed web of corruption and intimidation threatened by this nobody. This old black mechanic who suddenly wasn't acting like a nobody. Enraged and increasingly desperate, Davis made a rash decision. You think you're smart, huh? We'll see how smart you are in state prison. I'm adding resisting arrest and threatening an officer to your charges. You'll be buried so deep, Carter, no one will ever hear from you again. He stormed out, barking orders to prepare transfer papers, oblivious to the fact that he was no longer escalating a situation, he was charging headlong into a meticulously prepared ambush. Elijah Carter had faced down far more dangerous enemies with far fewer resources. And Chief Davis had just handed him the perfect ammunition. Monday morning arrived with a deceptive calm. Chief Davis, radiating a false confidence, was in his office, barking at his secretary to expedite Elijah Carter's transfer. I want that black troublemaker out of my city by noon, he snarled. In his mind, the problem was almost solved, another black man, another veteran, swept under the rug. At precisely 10:47 a.m., the calm shattered. 3 immaculate black sedans with official government plates and a military communications van pulled up silently in front of the police station. Men and women in crisp army dress uniforms emerged, their movements precise and purposeful. The first to step out of the lead car was General Samuel Thompson himself, 4 stars gleaming on his shoulders, his 6'4" frame radiating an aura of absolute command. He was flanked by 2 colonels and a Pentagon press officer. The station's receptionist gaped, frozen. Where, General Thompson's voice resonated through the suddenly silent precinct, is Police Chief Davis. Davis, hearing the commotion, emerged from his office, his bravado faltering as he took in the scene. I'm Chief Davis. Can I help you, General? General Samuel Thompson, United States Army, Thompson stated, his eyes like chips of ice. I'm here regarding Sergeant Major Elijah Carter. Davis stammered, a bead of sweat trickling down his temple. Sergeant Major. Sir, there must be some mistake. The man we have in custody, Carter, he's just an old black mechanic. Unemployed, troublemaker. General Thompson cut him off with a look that could freeze fire. Staff Sergeant Major Elijah Carter, retired. United States Army Special Forces. Green Beret. Recipient of the Medal of Honor for Valor Above and Beyond the Call of Duty, 2 Silver Stars, 3 Bronze Stars for Valor, 4 Purple Hearts. 15 overseas deployments in classified and unclassified theaters of operation. A man who, on 3 separate occasions, saved the lives of over 30 American soldiers, myself included, under extreme enemy fire. The air crackled. Davis's face had gone a ghastly white. Medal of Honor. The words hung in the air, a death knell to his career. He is considered, the general continued, his voice rising to fill every corner of the station, one of the finest unconventional warfare specialists this nation has ever produced. A man who has sacrificed more for this country than you could comprehend in 1,000 lifetimes. And you, Chief Davis, arrested this black hero, this American patriot, for the crime of helping an elderly woman while being black. At that precise moment, Ben Jackson, Elijah's lawyer, entered, followed by Mrs. Henderson, her daughter, and a scrum of local news reporters and cameramen, their equipment already rolling, discreetly tipped off by the Pentagon press officer. "Oh, and Chief Davis," Jackson said, a grimly satisfied smile on his face, "I trust you enjoyed those calls from upstairs." That was General Thompson himself, making sure his friend, his brother, wasn't being railroaded by a corrupt, racist system. Davis sputtered, "Look, we didn't know. He never said he was military, or anything so. Why should he have to, Chief?" General Thompson stepped closer, his towering presence dwarfing Davis. Men like Sergeant Major Carter, especially black men who have served with distinction, often learn the hard way that their service, their sacrifice, is too often met by civilians like you not with honor, but with suspicion, with contempt, with the very racism they fought to protect this nation from. Mrs. Henderson stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. "Chief Davis, I have something for you. I recorded our entire conversation after Mr. Carter's arrest, the one where you dismissed my testimony and made those comments about him. My daughter at City Hall also found some very interesting patterns in your department's finances, especially concerning donations from Morrison Construction." One of General Thompson's colonels stepped forward and handed Davis a thick folder. "These, Chief Davis, are copies of documents, testimonies, and financial records that have already been dispatched to the State Internal Affairs Division, the FBI, and the U.S. Attorney's Office. They detail a clear pattern of corruption, extortion, and civil rights violations targeting black veterans in your jurisdiction, all linked to your financial dealings with Morrison Construction and other entities." Davis's trembling hands fumbled with the folder. His eyes scanned the damning evidence, bank statements, transcribed calls, a list of black veterans he'd systematically persecuted. "How?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. Elijah Carter finally appeared, escorted by a now deferential officer. Every eye in the station was on him, a newfound respect, even awe, in their gazes. He looked directly at Davis. "Chief, when you judge a man by the color of his skin or the assumed humility of his circumstances, you reveal nothing about him, but everything about yourself." General Thompson turned to Elijah, his stern face softening with genuine emotion. "Sergeant Major Carter, on behalf of the United States Army, and indeed a grateful nation, I offer our deepest apologies for the indignity and injustice you have suffered. This is an affront to every man and woman who has ever worn the uniform with honor, especially our black service members who have always served with twice the valor for half the recognition." "Thank you, General," Elijah replied, his voice steady. "But the apology, I believe, is owed by Chief Davis. Not just to me, but to every veteran, every black citizen, he has wronged through his greed and his prejudice." Ben Jackson stepped up to Davis, slapping another set of legal documents into his hand. "And on that note, Chief, consider yourself served. This is a multi-million-dollar lawsuit for unlawful arrest, defamation, racial discrimination, and violation of Mr. Carter's civil rights. We'll see you in federal court." Davis, cornered and exposed, made one last, pathetic attempt. "This is all a misunderstanding. I was just doing my job." "Your job?" Mrs. Henderson's voice cut through his whine, laced with bitter laughter. "Son, I've seen a lot of dirty cops in my 70-odd years. You weren't incompetent. You were deliberately, maliciously, and racially motivated." The reporters surged forward. "Chief Davis. Any comment on the allegations of systemic corruption and targeting black veterans?" It was then that Davis truly understood. It wasn't just his career that was over. The cameras were rolling. The nation was watching. The man he had dismissed as a nobody, an old black vet, had, with the quiet precision of a master strategist, dismantled his entire rotten empire. "No, that's not how it was," Davis mumbled, his voice a broken whisper. But it was too late. The truth, long suppressed, had finally, devastatingly, come to light. As new handcuffs, this time, shining and purposeful, were snapped onto Davis's wrists, the reign of a petty tyrant was over, brought down by the quiet courage of a forgotten hero. 6 months later, Sergeant Major, retired, Elijah Carter stood on the main stage at the National Veterans Convention. The cavernous hall, packed with over 5,000 former service members from every branch and background, erupted in a thunderous, sustained standing ovation. The Civil Courage Award in his hands gleamed under the spotlights, a testament to his quiet battle fought and won on home soil. "When they cuffed me that day," Elijah began, his voice, amplified by the microphone, resonating with calm authority, "I thought I was just facing another corrupt local official. I had no idea that standing up for what was right would help expose an entire system of persecution against veterans, especially veterans of color." The federal investigation that had mushroomed from his case had indeed been a bombshell. 12 individuals, including 3 executives from Morrison Construction and several city officials, were indicted. Morrison Construction itself had filed for bankruptcy, its reputation shattered, its government contracts terminated. Over 40 veterans, predominantly black, who had been unjustly targeted by Davis's ring, received a collective settlement of $23 million. Ben Jackson, now a managing partner in his rapidly expanding law firm specializing in civil rights and veterans advocacy, watched from the front row, pride evident on his face. His firm had become a national beacon for those fighting injustice. Elijah didn't just seek revenge, Jackson had told reporters, he demanded systemic change. And he got it. Former Police Chief Davis was serving an 8-year sentence in federal prison for corruption, extortion, and multiple civil rights violations. His fall had been swift and absolute. His assets were seized to contribute to victim compensation. In prison, he was just another inmate, stripped of the power he had so cruelly abused, finally understanding what it felt like to be voiceless and demeaned. He'd reportedly lamented to a cellmate, a black Vietnam veteran, a simple mechanic, "How did a simple black mechanic do this to me?" The cellmate had just shaken his head. "Man, you didn't mess with a mechanic. You messed with a soldier. A black soldier. And you still don't get it." Mrs. Henderson, now a spry 79, had become a celebrated national activist, founding the Courage to Speak Foundation to assist veterans and minorities facing similar injustices. "That brave man, Elijah Carter," she'd say in interviews, "he saved me twice. First from those thugs, and then he saved a whole community from a rotten system." The police precinct where Elijah had been humiliated underwent a top-to-bottom overhaul. 3 officers implicated in Davis's schemes were fired. The new chief, a respected black female veteran of the Marine Corps, installed a prominent plaque at the entrance, "We serve with honor and protect all with equality." Mandatory military cultural competency and de-escalation training, with a strong emphasis on recognizing and combating implicit racial bias, became standard. Elijah, however, had politely declined offers to run for public office. Instead, he'd poured his energy, and a significant portion of his personal compensation, into transforming his small auto repair shop. Carter's Veterans Restoration Hub was now a thriving 3-building complex. It wasn't just a garage, it was a vocational rehabilitation center, offering technical training, PTSD counseling, and job placement services exclusively for at-risk and formerly incarcerated veterans, with a special focus on the Black veteran community. Mitchell Veterans Enterprises, as it was formerly known, was a multi-million-dollar social enterprise, a testament to practical change. General Thompson often visited, no longer as a superior officer, but as a friend, a brother. "You know, Elijah," he'd said during one visit, watching veterans learn new skills, their faces alight with purpose, "your biggest victory wasn't just taking down Davis. It was showing the world that veterans, especially Black veterans, are not liabilities or victims. We are leaders, builders, and when underestimated, we are the architects of profound change." Elijah smiled, a deep, genuine smile that reached his wise eyes. He had meticulously documented injustices for years, building a quiet network. Davis hadn't just attacked one man, he'd poked a sleeping giant. As he concluded his speech at the convention, Elijah's words resonated deeply. "Don't seek revenge. Seek justice. Revenge satisfies only the self. Justice protects and uplifts all who follow. And remember, anyone who underestimates a veteran, anyone who judges a human being by the color of their skin, has no true understanding of the discipline, the strategy, the resilience, or the unbreakable bonds they are challenging." The auditorium remained on its feet, the applause echoing. Elijah Carter waved, not as a hero of wars past, but as a leader for the battles of today and tomorrow, a living embodiment of turning injustice into an enduring legacy of inspiration. If this story of courage, justice, and unwavering resilience touched your heart, please subscribe to the channel for more narratives of extraordinary individuals who transform adversity into triumph. Share this story, and in the comments below, let us know your thoughts. Please always comment respect for the sacrifices of all who serve and for the ongoing fight for equality. Because sometimes, the quietest among us possess the loudest courage, a strength capable of rewriting the rules for everyone.